Stand strongly behind Secretary Hegseth, who is doing a phenomenal job leading the Pentagon. And this is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement.
Just stop right here and take that statement and compare it to the treatment of General Mark Milley, who Donald Trump has threatened viciously. Wow. It's where we start the hour with NBC News national security correspondent Courtney Kube, who is bylined on that exclusive bit of NBC reporting. Also joining us, New York Times White House correspondent Luke Broadwater, who is bylined on a piece that we've covered since we've been here about chaos and cracks in the facade. Also joining us, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson, and our friend, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill. Courtney Kube, I start with you and your great reporting. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this was a story that Gordon Lubold, our colleague, and I worked on together. And what we learned here is that, in fact, there was not just this one signal chat that we learned about from The Atlantic and Jeffrey Goldberg inadvertently being added to a signal chat that Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, created to talk about these strikes against the Houthis last month. But now we know about this second chat that in fact was created by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He included family members, his wife and his brother, some of his close friends, including his personal attorney. But what we have now learned, Nicolle, is that in fact the information that Secretary Hegseth got actually came directly from the commanding general of U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla. He is the one who's responsible for the Middle East. Part of his area of operations includes Yemen. So he was the overall combatant commander for the area where these strikes are about to begin. He sent detailed information via a classified system to Secretary Hegseth. Nicolle, minutes later, just a few minutes later, Secretary Hegseth took some of that information, some of it word for word, and put it into that chat on Signal, an unclassified messaging app, put some of that specific information in. And then what we've also learned now is that, in fact, he also put some of that information, again, some of it word for word, into the chat that included his family members and some of his friends. Now, this is one of the talking points that we have heard from the very beginning from Secretary Hegseth, is that none of the information here was classified. But the fact that it was transmitted to him from the combatant commander on a classified system really calls that claim into question. We know that according to what The Atlantic put out, that had the types of platforms, specific times they would be taking off, specific times they would be dropping bombs, and critically the fact that the mission was a go, that means it had been approved, that would generally be considered among the most sensitive information in the U.S. military because lives could be put at risk. And what we also know, Nicolle, is that just in the past couple of days, the Houthis have shot down another U.S. MQ-9 drone. What that means is the Houthis continue to contest the airspace over Yemen. The reality is they would have a hard time shooting down an F-18, but they have shot down more than a dozen drones in the last several months. That means the airspace is dangerous. You had manned aircraft that were flying into Yemen to conduct these strikes. If that information had gotten out, it could have directly put their lives in risk, not to mention compromising this mission here. That's some of the new reporting that Gordon Lubold and I have. And it really calls into question all of what we have been hearing out of the administration. You know, on the soundbite that you played from Caroline Leavitt here, that was really striking to a lot of people who cover the Pentagon, because she said that everyone in the Pentagon is against Secretary Hegseth. Nicolle, on any given day, there are about 26,000 people working in the building right here. More than 1 million have badges to come in here every day. So far, they have self-identified, according to top leadership, including Secretary Hegseth, 3 individuals who have been removed for allegedly leaking classified information. And Nicolle, every one of them was close to the secretary. They were among his closest aides. They were his friends. He brought into the building to make the claim that the other thousands of people who are working in here, career civilians, members of the military, are against the secretary. That has been striking, and I have to tell you, people around the building are talking about that claim, Nicolle.
All right, let me make sure I understand everything that you have reported today that advances this story. The information was basically cut and pasted from a classified system into a and I won't even use a technical term, information that involved the timing of a strike that hadn't happened yet was communicated to the Secretary of Defense. That information was then lifted and copied and put into two signal chats. Is that what we understand?
Exactly. We don't know about copied and pasted because remember, this would have been transmitted on a classified system. We know that Secretary Hegseth was using a Signal app on his personal phone. So most likely what happened here is either he took the information word for word, he could have taken a screenshot. We don't know the exact details of that. What we do know, though, according to these officials we spoke with, in some cases the information was, again, word for word what General Kurilla sent on that classified server that was then put into an unclassified app by Secretary Hegseth and transmitted.
General Anderson, if anyone other than the Secretary of Defense did that, how would they be treated by the military?
They would be fired immediately, Nicolle. You know, and that's exactly what needs to happen to Pete Hegseth here. I mean, unlike last time when he was a participant in the group violation, security violation, he's actually the author. He actually put together this group chat. I mean, we all remember when he took over as the SecDef when he said, accountability starts now. Well, doggone it, accountability can start right now with him resigning, you know, because that's exactly what he needs to do. I mean, he talks about the people, you know, that people are talking, the press secretary was talking about people in the Pentagon being against him. Well, no wonder, because he's the leader and he's supposed to lead by example. And he set an incredible double standard. Everybody knows that if they did what he's done, they would be fired immediately. So no wonder they're laughing at him behind his back. No wonder they're snickering, and no wonder that he has no credibility in the building, because he has failed to lead them appropriately.
Courtney, let me drill down on another piece of your reporting that I just want to make sure doesn't get lost in sort of the blur of chaos at the Pentagon. The Houthis are holding their own. I'm not sure if that's a technical military term of art, but it sounds like we are not, this isn't going the way that Trump and others have described it. Just take me inside how the efforts are and what exactly they shot down, and lay that over something that Politico is reporting. Russia and China put up thousands of people to monitor all these phone calls at the top, and the #1 target besides the president would be the Secretary of Defense. That's according to Republican Congressman Bacon. Russia and China are all over Pete Hegseth's phone, and for him to be putting secret stuff on his phone is not right. He's acting like he's above the law, and that shows an amateur person.
Yeah, and remember, Congressman Bacon is also retired General Bacon, Air Force General, and one of his assignments was actually over in a strategic job, so he understands the implications of classified information and the possibility of the dangers that could befall the military if that information falls into the wrong hands. So, but you know, this goes to the larger chaos of what is happening right now. We continue to hear out of the Pentagon that they are so transparent. Nicolle, we have no idea what has happened over the last nearly 40 days of this campaign against the Houthis. It was announced on March 15th that they were beginning this big mission. We can't get details about what they are hitting, where. We get these sort of vague statements about their strikes during the day and night. We know that there is a tremendous amount of U.S. military power that has been moved into that region, and we see things on social media, massive strikes against the Houthis. The reality is the U.S. military can overpower the Houthis in most cases. I mean, the U.S. military is much more sophisticated. There's a professional force. They have more advanced weapons, all of that. But the Houthis are continuing to contest the airspace. They're continuing to fire off projectiles. They have shot down, just since this campaign began, between at least 6 and maybe 7 MQ-9 drones. These are $30 million drones, and they've shot down at least 6 of them since this campaign began. Look, they're contesting the airspace. It means they may not be winning, and they may not be long for this earth, frankly, at this point, but the reality is they are still in the fight after being, according to the military, the best we know is there is a consistent battle rhythm against them day after day after day, going after them, and they still have not been annihilated at this point, Nicolle.
Courtney, tell me how the information you're getting on this campaign is different from what you would have been briefed on in the Biden and the first Trump administration.
So back to October 7th, 2023, about 4 weeks after that, the attack in Israel, the Houthis started really stepping up their campaign, going after commercial shipping and some aircraft in the area. They were firing off projectiles, missiles, drones on a daily basis, and sometimes some of them were successful. They hit a couple of ships. Sometimes their drones were successful. The U.S. stepped up and started conducting strikes against them as well. There was a coalition at one point as well with some U.S. allies. During that time, we initially were getting a daily release about everything the Houthis were firing off. They fired 5 projectiles. Everything the U.S. was doing to respond, what aircraft were used, the sorts of military ships that were used, everything. As that sort of wound down, we were getting it on a weekly basis. It has changed a bit over time. Since this campaign began, Nicolle, we have zero information. And it's not for lack of asking. The press corps here has been extremely aggressive trying to get the information. We cannot find out even the basics. Candidly, even one thing that was in the signal chats, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz talked about taking out a Houthi leader in the first round, that first salvo in March. We don't know who that leader was. We can't even get confirmation that, in fact, that is even accurate.